Hello students, in this video lesson I will be explaining to you about the poetry All the World's a Stage by William Shakespeare. Now the first batch you have 4 points there. So the first one is All the World's a Stage by William Shakespeare. That is what we are going to learn in this video lesson. The second point is that this poem consists of 34 lines according to a text. Okay, so before we continue, I want you to break down the poem into 8 parts. Now from line 1 to 5 make a box around the lines. Line 6 and 7 make another box. Line 8 to 10 another box. Vice versa. Line 11 to 13, 14 to 18, 19 to 23, 24 to 30, 31 to 34. Okay, now we have divided the poem into 8 parts. This poem, moving on to the third point, this poem is an excerpt from a drama titled As You Like It, written by William Shakespeare himself. Now these lines were spoken by one of the characters of Shakespeare named Jakes. Okay, the spelling is in your text, named Jakes. Now do not be confused. Okay, like the fourth point is that similarity between drama and poetry. Now you may be confused as to why why it is known as a poetry when actually it is a part of a drama. Okay, so I want to make it clear that the language that the drama used to express itself is poetic. Okay, so the drama, of course, drama is acted out on stage, but you can see that the characters, the language that the characters use is actually poetic. That's the reason why it is an extract from the drama, but still then it is a poetry. Okay, so remember, do not get confused. So basically a drama uses a medium of poetic language for the expression of its ideas. I hope you're clear with the concept. Now let's start with the poetry. Okay, now before we move on to the next page, I want you to Google the biographical background of William Shakespeare. Okay, as it becomes a key element in approaching any kind of poetry and understanding it. Okay, so let us move on to the next page. Now, before we start with the poem, I want you to open your text and then follow along as I read the lines, okay? Now, I will read from line 1 to 5. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages, okay? Now, in every drama, say like, for example, your school function, okay, our school function. Now whenever there's a stage act, there's a drama, the first process is that the character comes in, right? So that is the first process, the entrance of the character. Now the second is that he plays roles, okay, he plays different roles. Now the third and the last process is that he exits. Okay, now the poet compares this process of stage act to that of our life's journey. Okay, we being born into this world, we taking up different characters and dying. So that is clear. Now the entrance of a character on the stage is marked by or is compared to our birth, and the roles that the character takes up after coming on the stage, okay, is compared by our role on earth, say as a child, as a father, a mother, a husband, a wife, a teacher, a policeman, etc. Okay, and the character in the stage after completing his role leaves the stage, right, or exits the stage, which is compared to that of our physical death. Okay, now that being clear, the poet in the fourth and the fifth line says that a man in his lifetime plays many parts. Okay, and the poet divides a man's role into 7 ages. I hope that is clear. Now let us move to lines 6 and 7. Line 6 and 7. Let me read it for all of us. At first the infant mewling and puking in the nurse's arms. Okay, so the poet says the first role that an individual plays is that of an infant. Now this is the part where the drama of life begins. Okay, now me as an individual, when I go on a role to play on a stage to act a role, I need to enter first, right? So this part is compared to that of the entrance of a character. Now we see a very clear or vivid picture of how a young infant is born crying and puking on the nurse's arms. Okay, so I've given you some few keywords like infant, mewling, puking. Please remember these very keywords in every line, in every box, in every idea, in every stage, okay? Because this will help you to indicate which stage it is. So remember those things. Now, this first stage marks our entry into the stage, entry into the world, okay? So remember this. And then the whining schoolboy with his satchel and shining morning face, creeping like snail, unwilling to school. Okay. Now here, this is the second stage. Now I've given you some few keywords like schoolboy, satchel, creeping like snail, unwilling to school. Okay. Now, in this second stage, the infant baby grows into a schoolboy where he is seen carrying his school bag and lazily or creeps like a snail, in other ways saying lazily, okay, unwillingly to school. Okay, here shining morning face means the schoolboy has a bright and a fresh looking, well washed face in the morning. He has just been dressed for the school and he's looking fresh. Okay, so it means this one, shining morning face. So this is the second stage. He is in the second stage. This young infant baby grows into a schoolboy. Okay, so line 11 to 13. And then the lover, sighing like furnace, with a woeful ballet made to his mistress's eyebrow. Okay, so the young schoolboy then grows up to take the role of a young lover. This third stage is his early youth, the peak of love and romance. Okay, now the meaning of the word sighing is emit a long, deep, audible breath expressing sadness, relief, tiredness, or similar. And the meaning of the word woeful ballet. Okay, a woeful ballet is a song or possibly a poem, okay, with words that describe a sorrowful experience. It may be about a horrific event or tragedy or experience of heartbreak that left the singer clearly very sad. Okay, so one thing we need to ask here is, why is the young lover singing a sad song? Okay, so remember that it is not specifically mentioned what song he is singing. Okay, but we can come to two possible conclusions, that is, either he is rejected by or ignored by the lover, or he longs to get close to his lady love. Okay, so these may be the two possible conclusions. So I've given you some few keywords in these very lines also, okay, like the young lover, sighing like furnace, woeful ballet. So I want you to remember these keywords as well. Okay, so the fourth stage is from line 14 to 18. Then a soldier, full of strange oaths and bearded like a bard, jealous in honor, sudden and quick in quarrel, seeking the bubble reputation, even in the cannon's mouth. Okay, so the fourth stage is that of a soldier, where life is full of obligations, commitments, compliances, oaths, and vows. Okay, so you can see in the 15th line, you can see full of strange oaths. Okay, so whenever you enter an army, you have to give an oath, right? You have to give an oath. So it is a mention of that very idea. Okay, now in the 15th line, you see that his beard is like a leopard. Okay, because why a leopard? Is because it is roughly maintained. Okay, it is roughly maintained. Now at this stage, he endlessly fights for honor and is short-tempered, who is quick to start up a quarrel. Now he constantly seeks reputation, which is as temporary as a bubble. Okay, why in the 17th line it is mentioned as a bubble reputation? Okay, we must have experienced ourselves or played with bubbles. Okay, we know that the bubble exists for a minimum of about 30 seconds and it is gone. Okay, likewise the reputation that he seeks are all temporary reputation or bubble reputation, which will not stick long with him. But such is his temperament or attitude at this stage that he is even willing to stand before a cannon's mouth to achieve that temporary reputation or bubble reputation. Okay, now let's move on to the fifth stage, that is from line 19 to 23. And then the justice, in fair round belly with good cabon lined, with eyes severe and beard of formal cut, full of wise souls and modern instances, and so he plays his part. Now the fifth stage is the adulthood, where a man tries to live a fair and justified life. Okay. Now, when in the 19th line it says, and then the justice. This does not necessarily mean he becomes a judge. Okay. Just means to say that his wisdom, his thoughts becomes as wise as a judge. Okay. So his belly, in the 20th line, he says his belly becomes bigger than normal. Okay. He is conscious about his diet and takes a good intake. Now, in the 20th line, we see that his eyes are now severe with seriousness, and we can see that in the previous age, he had a beard as rough like a leopard, right? But now it is leveled down to a formal, clean cut. Okay. Now he is wise enough, and therefore he combines his wisdom in order to adjust with the ever-changing times. Okay. Now this stage can perhaps be called as the most powerful stage of life. Okay. So even here I've given you some few keywords, so I want you to remember those few keywords. Okay, in the fifth stage. Now remember, in the fifth stage, this bearded soldier grows into as wise as a judge. Okay. Now the sixth stage is from line 24 to 30. Let me read it. The sixth age shifts into the lean and slippered pantaloons, with spectacles on nose and pouch on side, with youthful hose, well saved, a world too wide for his shrunk shank, and his big manly voice turning again into childish treble pipes and whistles in his sound. Okay. Now, in the sixth age, he becomes thin and weak old man, right? In line 25, you see into the lean and slippered pantaloon. Now he is more comfortable with slippers, and he now looks funny, slippered pantaloons. Okay. Now, in the 26th line, you see he's with spectacles on nose and pouch on sides. What does it mean? It means that we can also see that his eyesight weakened, and thus he wears spectacles now and carries pouch, which is a sign that he is now absent-minded. Okay. Now in the 27th line, the word hose, H-O-S-E, means trousers. Okay, pants. Now his dress in his youth, which he used to wear, are now too big for him, and the world is too big for his thinner legs to walk around. In the poem, you can see a world too wide for his shrunk shank, right? Which means that the world is now too big for him to walk around, for his thinner legs. Okay. And his big manly voice turning again towards childish treble, which means that his big manly voice now descends to a lower tone. Okay, descends to a lower tone. In his free time, he smokes from his pipe and whistles song in his matured melodies, matured voice. Okay, so I want you to remember that this is the first stage of old age. Okay, this is the first stage of becoming old. So you all have your grandparents at your home. So these are no new instances for you. Okay, you must have observed this in your grandparents as well. So this is what the poet mentions, and the poet says that this is the sixth stage of life. Okay, now let us move on to the seventh stage of life, that is line 31 to 34. The last scene of all that ends this strange eventful history is second childishness and mere oblivion, sense deed, sense eyes, sense taste, and sense everything. Now he enters the last stage of old age, which is also known as second childishness in lines 33. Okay, if you see second childishness. Now why is this stage known as second childishness? Okay, for example, most of us must have seen our grandparents above 80 or 90 at our homes. Okay, so when we observe them, they are very childish, They feel bad over a little matter. They cry easily, right? They forget easily. Like a small child, they depend on us for their survival. We have to feed them, bath them, even wash their clothes, etc. Okay, so that is the reason why this stage is known as second childishness. Now, mere oblivion here means that he has grown really helpless and has forgotten most of his memories, his past important events, everything. Okay, now he now exists without any real realization, any memories, etc. Sense means without. It is given in your text. Okay, sense means without. Now in line 34, it is given sense did, sense eyes, sense taste, and sense everything. Now sense means without, right? So it means without teeth, without eyes, without taste, without everything. Now this may mean two things, okay? The first thing is that it may mean that he is very weak now as an old man, okay? So all his body parts, all his organs it does not function as it is supposed to function effectively. Okay, it may mean this one. His teeth fall, his eyes are weak now, he loses everything, right? Now this means that at the end he is left with nothing. Okay, so this is the first meaning. Now the second meaning that we can derive is that sense everything without everything, right? So it means that he must have died. Okay, he must have died. So this may mean the second thing. Now this is also a relevance to a famous saying, empty we came to the world, empty we shall live. Now let us review our poem for the last time. The title of this poem is All the World's a Stage, written by William Shakespeare. Now William Shakespeare made use of one of his character named Jakes to utter these very lines. Okay, so remember this. Now William Shakespeare in this very poem compares the drama, okay, where a character enters, he performs different characters roles, and then he leaves. Okay, so this process he compares that to our life. When a character enters, he says that this is being compared to our birth on this earth. Okay, and when a character performs roles, that is being compared to that of our role on this earth as a child, as a father, as a mother, okay, and as a grandparent. Okay, so he compares that role to that of our life's role. And when a character completes his role and exits the stage, that has been compared to that of our life when we finish our life role and then exits this world through death. Okay, world through death. So remember this. Now he says that there are 7 stages. Okay, there are 7 stages that a man performs before he leaves this earth. Now the first one is infancy, when he is born. Okay, infancy. Now the second stage is that of a schoolboy. Okay, is that of a schoolboy. Now the third stage is that of a young lover. Okay, and after a young lover, he grows into a bearded soldier, an aggressive, a jealous in honor. Okay, he is quick in quarrel, quick-tempered, an aggressive soldier. Okay, then afterwards he becomes like a judge. Okay, not a judge, but he becomes like a judge. Okay, and after performing that stage, after performing that role, he becomes old, the first stage of old age. Okay, the first stage of old age, where he wears spectacles now, where he carries his pouch. Okay, now he's a slippered pantaloon. Okay, he looks funny, he is now weak and thin. So remember this. Now the 7th stage is the last stage of man's life. Okay, where he becomes like a child again. That's why there is a mention in line 33, second childishness, right? Okay, he loses he loses the power of his sight. Okay, he loses his teeth, he loses his taste and everything. Okay, which also means that is the end of life. Okay, he has already completed his journey and he has already exited the world. Okay, so remember this, and if you have any doubts, you can always your captains will have my WhatsApp number, so you can always avail it and you can always clear your doubts from me. Okay, thank you and stay safe.